Welcome to HR Analytics for Sage HRMS. I'm Joe Rotella, the Chief Marketing Officer for Delphia Consulting, and I'm joined by Jared Dinsmore, the Product Manager for HR Analytics for Sage HRMS. In today's webinar, we'll talk about data-driven HR and why analytics matter. We'll talk a little bit about how out-of-the-box reporting in Sage HRMS is just not enough. And then we'll show you the brand new analytics and reporting solution, HR Analytics for Sage HRMS. We'll wrap up by looking at some of the benefits of improved HR analytics, and we'll talk about next steps. HR is sitting on a gold mine of data. As we continue to expand the applications that are used for human capital management, things like learning management systems, recruiting systems, performance appraisal systems, continuous performance management systems, and so on, we're gathering more and more data about our workforce. That data can be used to make better HR decisions. We can also use it to better understand and evaluate the business impact of people. And there's a trend now where it's becoming more and more important to really understand how the people in your organization are working together to achieve the organization's vision. Are we all rowing the boat in the same direction? And how do we know that? And how do we know when someone might need a little bit of a course correction? By using data-driven HR, we can improve leadership's decision-making when it comes to people-related matters. We can also look to make our HR processes and operations more efficient and effective. These things combined improve the overall well-being and effectiveness of the company's employees. The impact on this is huge. You start to see this chart, why HR analytics matter, more and more and more in the HR research around people analytics. It centers around these four boxes. So down in the lower left, the linkage of business objectives and people strategies. This is a fundamental principle when it comes to employee engagement. We know that organizations who have highly engaged employees see a 2 to 3% higher bottom line year after year compared to those organizations that don't have highly engaged employees. We can link employee engagement to when employees feel like they make a difference. They know that what they're doing contributes to the big picture. But the question becomes, can we really measure, can we use analytics to know when people are engaged or not? Performance improvement. This is right along the same lines. Global organizations with workforce analytics and workforce planning outperform all other organizations by 30% more sales per employee. That's from Cedar Crestone. Again, the bottom line is when we have analytics and we're using analytics to measure performance, we can then start tweaking our behaviors to fine-tune, to tune up, to tweak the kind of performance we're achieving. What about return on investment? This is a question that very often pops up when we're talking to executives about making decisions related to human capital management, especially investing in HR programs and services. If we can measure whether or not a given program has an impact on the bottom line, we can measure that return on investment, and analytics are striving to do just that. And then, of course, Peter Drucker's famous quote, "What gets measured gets managed. What gets managed gets executed." This is the success of programs like Weight Watchers. If you do those weigh-ins, you're paying attention to something, you're going to manage it better, you're going to make progress. So the whole notion of, can we measure things? And if we measure them, then we can manage them. If we manage them, we can make sure we're all aimed in the same direction. Well, people analytics are all about measuring data that's associated with people, and people are typically a company's biggest expenditure. The problem is that reporting in Sage HRMS is not enough. First, there's some limitation to how many people in the organization have access to this information, because reports in Sage HRMS are limited because they require each user to have a core HRMS license. And in many cases, that's just not practical. The bulk of reports in Sage HRMS depend on Crystal reports. That's primarily a desktop tool. So that limits folks who want to access reports by being anywhere where they can get to a browser on the web. Crystal reports often require a developer to build the report files, and those developers have to be familiar with the database schema and even SQL code. And sometimes just using the reports, let alone distributing them, is difficult. The user interface is not very intuitive, and the reports aren't very interactive. Overall, the reports don't really present data in the best way possible for you to visualize what's going on. Think about it. If I gave you a table of numbers and very quickly said, what's the trend? That might be tough for you to figure out. And you may not get it right just looking at numbers and trying to decide, okay, it's going up, going down, going up a lot more, up, down. But if I put that in a line graph, you could instantly see what's going on. If I asked you which thing was most prevalent, well, looking at, again, a table of numbers might make that difficult, but a heat map makes that a breeze. I like to look back to the Star Trek days when you could stand in front of a giant wall, a giant screen, and say, computer, what if? What if we did this? Tell me this, show me this. Well, that's really what analytics and data visualization is all about. And that's really some of the founding principles of HR analytics by Delphia Consulting. So let's talk about the scope. What we've done in this analytics solution is taken an abstracted view of the Sage HRMS and Payroll database and made it the core data source for all the analytics available in the solution. By an abstracted view, it means we took the data from HRMS and Payroll, which has a lot of tables and can be a little bit difficult to navigate from a schema perspective, and kind of regrouped it to make it easier for users to understand, combined it in a way that makes it easy for you to report on, for you to analyze. The goal here was to replace standard HR and payroll reports, Secure Query Builder, and ESS View Builder. And right now we have over 250 reports in the catalog today, and I'll give you a brief list of those later in the webinar. Now we are reviewing that catalog because I do believe there's some consolidation that can be achieved. Sometimes we see that the similar reports, it's kind of the same report, but one has different columns or one's sorted in a different order. Well, when you have such interactive reports as what's available in HR Analytics for Sage HRMS, we can really combine that into one report and let people do their own filtering and turn on and off individual columns, and you'll see that in the demo. HR Analytics also has a view into the HR actions for Sage HRMS database. And there you can use it to generate data quality reports as well as some reports on HR analytics. So one of my favorites has to do with how do you measure a manager's performance when it comes to administrivia or paperwork. Many, many years ago, I worked at Bell Labs, and I'm sure HR would tell you I was notorious. I was the manager who was slow getting performance reviews done, who was slow signing off on paper forms to do pay changes or transfer people, things like that. Well, with HR Actions for Sage HRMS, all of those forms are now paperless, and the routing or the workflow is happening electronically as well, which means under the hood, we've captured when did we ask a manager to approve a given paperless form, and when did they actually get that approval done? Well, that's a ton of data. So it'd be fairly easy now to build a report that said what managers are the slowest to do their approvals, what managers are the slowest to get their performance appraisals done. And because we have quantifiable data, it's concrete, we can now use that in a performance evaluation process or even in a coaching session to say, hey, look, you really don't want to be the last on this list. You need to be a little bit better at handling some of the administrivia parts of being a manager. These listings, reports, analysis grids, dashboards, and bookmarks are all available over the web. And we've built it in such a way that there's an exceptional user experience. There's a shared user interface now between HR Analytics and HR Actions. So if you're using both modules of Sage HRMS, you can go to one place and work with them both. If you've only licensed one, only one shows up. Eventually license the other, that one will show up. Within HR Analytics, remember I mentioned we have over 250 reports. Well, that's kind of a long list to navigate, so we decided to group them. That navigation and grouping is based on SHRM's BOK, the Body of Competency and Knowledge. That's SHRM's vision of the structure of the HR function. So if you're familiar with SHRM, if you're familiar with their certification exams, if you're familiar with the BOK, this grouping will make perfect sense. We also support single sign-on with employee self-service, Active Directory, and native HR Actions administration interface. And it can be a mix of those. So if you have multiple users using HR Analytics for Sage HRMS, some might access it through ESS, some might access it through Active Directory, and that's okay. You also have expanded access to reports and better security. Users don't need a core Sage HRMS license to use HR Analytics. We also have role-based permissions right down to field-level security. So you can build one report, and maybe that one report has compensation information. That report can be distributed to multiple individuals just the way it is, and each individual might only see people on that report that are in their sphere of influence. You might even have certain columns or fields show up or not show up based on permissions for the person who's getting that report, for what role they're in. Now, the list of available reports is huge, and this list is available on our website. But to give you an idea, let's look at payroll and payroll processing. On the top of each of these slides, you'll see two things. The first item, payroll on the left, and the slash, then the second item, payroll processing. This is the navigation that's in HR Analytics. The top level item is the one on the left, payroll, and then under payroll, you'll have payroll processing and so on. Again, these navigation categories match SHRM's structure of the HR function, or the body of competency and knowledge. So for payroll processing, there's quite a huge list. We have reports for payroll history. In the people category, we have information for contact info, information about the employee and the organization, things like an anniversary list, a new hire list, a union member list, and personal information, like an age list or a birthday list. We also can report on skills and education that are stored in Sage HRMS. Certification or licensure, a skill list, a skill analysis, and wellness information, like a blood donor list or a health profile. From there, we move on to total rewards. There's a section on benefits, a beneficiary list, or a COBRA recipient report. Compensation information, like a salary analysis, or even statistics by job code. From there, workforce management, absence management, absence averages and logs, a list for perfect attendance. FEMLA reports, who's currently on FEMLA, what's your FEMLA analysis like, and LOA, or leave of absence reports. Pay equity reports, job groups by gender and jobs by gender, and turnover reports, like turnover statistics and a turnover analysis. The Data Explorer is a more robust way for you to look at that abstracted set of data and come up with reports that make sense for you. Today, we have reports about attendance transactions or benefits or education or even wellness. But that's enough of that long list of reports. I'm going to turn it over now to Jared Dinsmore, the product manager for HR Analytics for Sage HRMS, and he's going to give you a brief walkthrough of what the tool is like.
Thank you, Joe. And I've gone ahead and logged into HR Analytics. Now, I want to point out that this is, you mentioned, Joe, a web-based application. This will work in any browser. I'm logged in using my Chrome browser. And what you can see here is we're in HR Analytics. We're on our dashboard. I won't go into much detail in HR Actions, but just to highlight what you talked about. If you are an HR Actions user, you have access within the same browser window to HR Actions self-service. And then if you're an administrator in HR Actions, you have the same access to HR Actions admin within the same browser. The nice part is you don't have to log in to each application separately. Everything works under one roof. But today's focus is on HR Analytics, so let's take a look at that. Here I am logged in on my dashboard. Now, in this example, I have a very simple dashboard set up. I have one tab set up with only one gadget on the dashboard. We'll go through a demonstration and I'll show how to add an item to the dashboard. Now, these are real-time dashboards, so when you log in or anytime you hit the dashboard, the data on this page refreshes automatically, so real-time data that we're looking at. And in my example here, I did a simple report with a graph showing how many employees we had by state. You can hover over, and there's even tooltips when you hover over on this, so we can see here in California, we have 39 employees. So we'll come back to this in a little bit and take a look at how we can add an item to the dashboard. In the meantime, I want to go and take a look at some of our standard reports. Now, Joe, you just walked through what we have in each one of our menu items. Well, here is that menu item, so our menu items. So for example, as you mentioned, under people, we've got categorization of reports such as contact info, employee and organization, personal information, skills and education, wellness. Under our total rewards, we have a category of reports for benefits and compensation. Under talent management, there's performance, workforce management, you mentioned the FEMLA, the leave of absence, and then we have our payroll reports as well. So let me close those and let's go into contact info. Now when we click on contact info, we get a page that's going to list all the different reports that we have under contact info. So right now we have 2 reports, and I want to take a look at the phone list, the phone and email list. So we'll click into that. And again, real-time report, so it's going to go ahead and it's going to generate the report for us with real-time data. And then once this report loads, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to show the different things that we can do within this report. So out of the box, the report comes with a filter area up at the top, and then some column selection tools here, and then we get our actual report down below. So taking a look at this, we can see we've got some pagination set up. We're on page 1 of 2. We can see a report with several different columns in it: full name, home, cell, business, business extension, and email. Now, the first thing I might look at and say is, okay, I don't really need the employee's home phone number. Maybe I don't even need their cell number. Really, this is kind of an internal thing, so I just want their business phone. So if I don't want columns in my report, I can go to Show Hide Table Options. And you can see here, this gives me a list of the columns that are available and which ones I want visible. So there's actually a lot more columns available in this report than we're seeing right now because we have most of them turned off. And in fact, I want to go ahead and turn a few more off. I'm going to turn off home and cellular. So I just uncheck the box, hit apply. The report will refresh. And this is one thing that's nice, in Sage HRMS reporting, when you work with crystal reports, there was a process, you would have to go into one screen and look at the crystal report and set parameters and then generate, the PDF type or crystal report would generate. Well, this is much easier. It's all right here on the screen. So now we can see our report's a little more consolidated. I've got my business phone extension and email. Now, email I'm going to turn off because this is a phone list, so I would turn off email. And then I want to put in, I want the division and the department as well. So I'm going to do that, apply our changes. And then what I'm going to do is I'll see my division of my department, and then I want to go ahead and I want to sort that report by first the division and the department. So we've added this, now we've got division and department. So let's go ahead and use this next part here, the multi-column sorting. So the report, this report comes sorted by department automatically. If I want to add another column for sorting, I'll click here on the column list. I'm said I want to add division, so I'm going to add division. And now what's going to happen is the report will be sorted by department and then division. And if I want to change that, if I want to say I'd rather have it sorted by division rather than department, what I'll do is, you can see here, sorted by department and then division. I could always say, nope, let's remove the department. It'll be sorted by division. And then if I want, I'll go back and add department, so then I can be sorted by division and department. So we have that. So now we can see we're sorted by division. And let's go ahead and add department. And now we've got the report pretty much set up the way that I like it. Here we go. by division, and then department. Now, the one thing I might want to do here is, for me, it'd be a little bit easier to see right next to the person's name, the division and their department. I'd like the phone pieces to be at the end of the report. So there, I'm going to take the columns, and they actually can just drag and drop the columns. And so I move business phone all the way over. Let's move business extension all the way over. And there we go. Now I've actually changed the order of the columns. So within our 256 reports that are going to come with HR Analytics, even those are not locked down. As you can see, a lot of opportunities here for changing what, the column visibility, sorting, and even organizing the columns the way that I'd like them. You also can control how the report is sorted just by clicking on a column header. Now, one other thing I want to show is if I hide these table options, I mentioned up at the top, we have our filters here. So if I wanted to, if this report has more information than I need, I'm really just trying to narrow it down to a particular department or division, I could do that. Let's say I wanted this phone and email list just to show me folks in the administrative department. I'm going to come up to my filters. I will pick department. Here's my list of departments. And I might just want to say, just give me administration. I'll take that, apply that filter, and now the report will show me just the folks in administration. Now, you may have noticed this wasn't just a single item select list. There's actually check boxes here, so it's a multi-select. So I could say I want to see folks from administration and human resources, and I'll apply that filter, and now I'll get a list back of administration and human resources. So we have other filtering options available. Now, these, location, position manager, employee status. When you go through our standard reports, a lot of the filters will be similar, right? People type data are all usually going to have these columns here, and the employee status, title, salaried, exempt. And then on a per report basis, there may be additional filters really just based upon this particular report. And then the payroll reports will also have some additional filtering. So let's take a look at what those might look like. Let me come over to payroll dropdown, click on payroll processing. And in our demo today, we have one example of a payroll report, the check direct deposit detail report. So if I click this, it's going to generate this report. And notice now up at the top, our filtering is different. We don't have the same set of filters that we had on the other report. So on a per report basis, a lot of times they're going to be similar, but there's definitely cases where there's unique filters per report. Now this one you see here, hey, wait a minute, there's no data. Well, that may be because I don't have any check details for the time period that I have here in my report. So rather than doing the date here, let's go and say, let's run a report from January 1st to February 1st. And we'll refresh the data. And this is going to go and it's going to pull back the check direct deposit details for that particular time period. And sure enough, here we go. And we've got our report data now showing up. Okay. So a lot of our standard reports will operate this way. Maybe I'll just take a second and we can take a look at one other one. How about the, you had mentioned the FEMLA stuff. So let's go here. We have a report that'll show currently on FEMLA and then also FEMLA analysis. So if I wanted to say, hey, geez, who's on FEMLA right now? I can click this report and it's going to generate and it's going to give us the list of who's on FEMLA. All right, sure enough. Now notice up at the top, consistent with the filters, right? So I said, just like in the other report, it's kind of a people report. So we're seeing things like employer division, the employee status, first name, last name, and then notice we have a couple custom filters over here for this report. We could filter this report by the leave start and the scheduled return. We're going to hide those. We're going to come down and hide these, and we can see here's the report here. All the same features. If I want to sort of move a column, and do that, I can sort by clicking on my column headers. Same type of features that we looked at in the other report, just custom to this data. One thing I didn't point out was if I did set up a report in a way that I like, be it filtering, be it columns, sorting, you can then bookmark the report so that you get that report set up the way you liked it, and then you can bookmark it and then come back to that report and it'll be formatted just how you did it. and those bookmarks would be available under your My Bookmarks link. So as you go through and work on reports and situation the way you like, you bookmark them, and the next time you want to go to that report, take a quick little shortcut, come to My Bookmarks, and you can jump right into that customized report. Okay, one other feature that I want to take a look at here before we wrap up is one of my favorite features. Joe mentioned it earlier, and it is our Data Explorer. So this is a tool that really gives you the ability to kind of go in and explore, analyze, and create your own reports and create your own analysis pieces. And this is also where we would take something and create it and then put it over on our dashboard. So the Data Explorer gives you the opportunity to go look at a lot of different types of data. We start by coming in and we have our data panel. And if I click the drop down here to select data, we have quite a range of things that we can start with to build a report. Benefits, check history, dependents, education, job history, OSHA, you name it. I'm going to jump in and I'm going to go take a look at our person view, pull back a whole big thing of people data, because what I want to do is I want to create a report that's going to give me a count of the number of salaried and the number of hourly employees that we have. And then I also want to, within that report, get a count of exemption status. So how many of the salaried employees are exempt, how many of the hourly employees are exempt, non-exempt. Okay, so our data's come back, and it's our person view. And you can see here, this is all of the different types of columns of data that's available in our person view. So it's quite a bit. Pretty much everything you have is there. If we scroll down, it automatically generates a table with all of those columns in there. So it gives you a starting point of here's everything. Now I'm going to narrow this down. So I'm going to unselect all. And what I'm really interested in doing is saying, okay, let's start with the full name. And then I want to find, I'm going to see exempt status description, and I'm going to do salary or hourly description. And what this is going to do is it's going to give me a list of every person and then their exempt and salaried status. So let's apply those columns. Okay, and we'll scroll down and see how that looks. Okay, so now we're down to 3 columns here. And if I wanted to, I believe I can get my mouse hovering right. I could stretch this columns out so it's a little bit easier to read. Same here, I could stretch this. All right. Now, here's where we get into doing some of the fun parts. I want to do some analysis or some aggregation. So in my table, I have a gear icon. I'm going to click that. And up at the top, it gives me a few options. First, I can show or hide columns within here. I can sort, I can group, and I can aggregate. So first, let's start by grouping. I want to come here and I want to group my columns by, well, I'm going to start by grouping them by the salaried or hourly description. So I'll add that grouping. And what that's now done is it's taken that report and it's now grouped. Here's my hourly employees, and then on the remaining pages, my salaried employees. I want to take that one step further, and I want to say within these groupings, now I want to group based on exemption status. So let's go up here, back to the drop down. Let's take exempt status description, and let's add that. Scroll down, and sure enough, now here's our hourly list of employees, and now they're grouped by exempt and non-exempt. We've got a few folks here as exempt, and then the remainder are non-exempt. Now we have the ability to do some aggregation. So if I go to the aggregate tab, I am going to say, okay, which column do I want to work with? Well, first, let's start with the salary or hourly description, and I just want to do a simple count. Now, I could do a distinct, min-max, but I just want to get a count of total number of salaried versus total number of hourly. So I'll click Add, and this is going to do a count for us. Okay, we'll scroll down, and sure enough, we've now got our count. So our overall count is 58. Out of the 58, we've got 18 hourly, and then down below here, we've got 40 in salary. And then notice it even went, and out of that 18, it did a count based upon how many are exempt, and then how many are in non-exempt. So that's pretty great. Now, if I wanted to, and I like that, I could go ahead and mentioned before, I could create a bookmark here. And if I create that bookmark, what that's going to do is it's going to save everything just like we see it today, so that the next time I come in and I click that bookmark, it'll take me right back to how I have everything set up. The only difference is it's just going to go and it's going to retrieve the data, and it's going to be real-time data. But instead, what I actually want to do is I want to show one of my other favorite features, and that's the charting capability. But before I do that, looking at this grouping, I know I don't really need the names of the folks in my list. So let me come in here. I'm going to go to columns, and I could do this up at the top, or I could do it here. I'm just going to turn off the full name, because really what I was looking for was basically the counts, how many hourly exempt, how many hourly non-exempt. So that's going to take that column out of the report, as we can see here. And I've got all these additional rows. And let's see, I can't remember, is it in my grouping? Yes, in my grouping, you actually have the opportunity, you can exclude the detail rows. So now in my report, instead of having all the, all 15 rows, this is just going to sum this right up and just show me basically my counts. So here we go, we just have our counts now. Now this doesn't look great in a table format. So that's where I want to go up to the top. And now I'm going to move from the data tab over to the charting tab. Okay. And you can see here, once I get to the chart tab, it's already started giving me a head start. It's already, I'm on a bar chart here. It's already started to create a bar chart for me. Now, I want to do some customization to this bar chart. The first thing I want to do is, I don't want to go horizontal. I want to make a vertical chart. So I'll click the bar orientation, and that changes it to vertical. So now I can see I've got my list here, salaried and hourly. I would like to see on each bar, it's nice that I can hover over and it gives me the count there. So I know 40 here, 18 here, but I don't always have to hover over. So what I'm going to do here is in my data column, I'm actually going to show the value. So what that'll do is when this refreshes, now it actually adds the count right into my vertical bar. So remember, we were looking at salaried and hourly, but we also were looking at exempt and non-exempt. So that's not in our report. But you can see here we have the option to add an additional column of data. So I'm going to click this, and I want to add my exempt status description. And it's gone ahead and it's done that. Now it's taken that and it's stacked the exempt status on top of the salary and hourly description. I don't really like how that looks. So rather than having these stacked, I actually want to just do these side by side. And now I get, okay, here's my salaried employees. There's 26 of them who are exempt, 14 who are non-exempt. Here's my hourly employees, 3 of which are exempt and 15 who are non-exempt. So now I think I've got a pretty nice looking report. If this is something that I need to keep track of, when I log in, kind of maybe on a daily, weekly basis, I'm going to go ahead and right up in the top, I've got this little bar here, add to dashboard. I'm going to go ahead and say, yep, I'm going to add this to my dashboard, and I'm going to say I get to name this. So I'm going to say it's my count of salary, hourly, and exemption status. Sure, how's that? So I'm going to say done. Okay, so now let me go over to my dashboard. And sure enough, there's that report that I just created right here on my dashboard. And if I want to, these are drag and drop. So I can take this, I thought I would put here. So let me take this one, drag it over here, and there we go. I've got my original employees by state report right here on my dashboard. And then I use the Data Explorer to create my very own report and save it to my dashboard. So HR Analytics is going to have a library of a catalog of 250 reports, which we took a look at and you can customize. And then with the Data Explorer, it's almost unlimited. You can do so much with the Data Explorer, create your own reports, bookmark them, and then put them on your dashboard. That is HR Analytics.
Thank you, Jared. So let's wrap up here. That was a demonstration of HR Analytics for Sage HRMS. What happens next? Well, if we look at the stages of analytics, This chart shows how, as you move and become more complex with your analysis, you start to add more business value. And I would say that right now, HR Analytics for Sage HRMS certainly covers the reporting, what happened, and a significant part of analysis and monitoring. Why did it happen, or what is happening now? As we continue to add reports and analytics to the solution, we'll start to build in more analysis and monitoring reports, and then start to get into predictive analytics. What can happen? And that's where we see the most business value. In addition, we're still building out some of the risk and compliance reports and reports under talent management for performance and for training. We're also working on SHRM People Analytics. Again, this is a new certification from SHRM, and these analytics are really starting to move up that business value side and over to the right. They're more complex. Things like retirement risk or the impact of turnover. That's not just a turnover rate, but the financial impact of turnover. Even the recruitment funnel effectiveness. And again, not just are we actually recruiting and then hiring from certain parts of the funnel, but how does that tie to business value? As you can see, there are a lot of benefits of improved HR analytics. You can more readily identify opportunities for HR impact or interventions, and it really supports the organizational strategic planning process. Focusing just on HR, it can help prioritize investments and actions or programs that you're looking to take, and can really help demonstrate the bottom line impact of HR programs and practices. Of course, we're always trying to make sure that everyone is rowing in the boat in the same direction. We're all headed to the same vision, that island way out there. And this specifically can help align HR strategy with corporate strategy, with getting to that vision. And it's going to enable managers to make better decisions regarding workforce management. For next steps, I think you should think about what challenges you face with your current reporting environment. Does everyone have access to reports who should have access or who could use them to help make better business decisions? Are you able to build views into the data quickly and easily without going back to programmers to have it done? Do you do a good job presenting data in a visual format? Graphs, charts, heat maps. If you feel you could do better, you could provide better data to your workforce and to your leaders, then it's time to talk with your Sage HRMS business partner or us here at Delphia Consulting about how HR analytics for Sage HRMS might be a great fit for you. You can find us on the web at www.delphiaconsulting.com or send an email to sales@delphiaconsulting.com. Thank you for joining us for HR Analytics for Sage HRMS.